This is Mitch Abrams, Global Business Manager for HP Calculators. A lot of you thought there wasn't one. You now met him. Mitch has been with HP for approximately 38 years. He served as a mechanical engineer and engineering manager for 23 years. In 2004, transitioned to senior business roles focused on growing new HP businesses based on HP's intellectual property. Mitch is a BSME from the University of Michigan, an MBA with a concentration in strategic alliances from Cal State University, and is a registered professional engineer, so not just a manager. Mitch's long relationship with HP Calculators and experience in growing businesses involving partnerships make him the ideal choice for reestablishing HP's calculator business. As has been discussed widely, it isn't gone away, and Mitch is going to tell us a lot about how it hasn't gone away. So, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, very good. I'm sorry that I don't have a chance to see you and interact with you, but it's a great pleasure to be here this morning. Bob was very kind in his introduction. Whether or not I'm the ideal candidate or not entirely clear, but time will tell, and we're off to a good start, so things are looking well. In preparing to talk to you folks, there are kind of 2 points that we discussed that we thought would be most of interest to you. And first and foremost is, who's the new guy? And where's he going? Where's he going to take calculators? So I'd like to spend a bit of the time this morning talking about that. The other thing that's been asked about and people are relatively curious about is what is this? We hear calculators, nothing's changed, but HP's brand licensing calculators. What could that possibly mean? So I want to spend a little time with you on exactly what that is and how it works. And then we've got a fair amount of time for question and answers. Where I'd like to just make sure that you're comfortable getting a rock solid understanding of what's changed, what stayed the same, what are HP's responsibilities, what are Morovi's responsibilities, what are Royal's responsibilities, where are we going together, any direction you want to take it, I'm wide open to discuss. You're welcome to ask, to be frank, you're welcome to ask questions on anything. I can't answer questions on everything, but I'm happy to hear what you're interested in, and perhaps we can figure out a way to get you answers offline if they're not available online. I'm assuming that you want to know more about me, and to understand more about me, it really starts with a deep technical background. So I'm going to start at the beginning, and I know it's early to be talking about like I was very young when I was born kind of story, but I'm going to start pretty early and take us all the way up to today. And that's a run. I've been with HP now for coming on 38 years, so it's a long story. All right, so briefly, real quick. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan in the 1960s, 1970s. In Detroit, your family either worked for the auto companies or you did work for people who did work for the auto companies. And I don't know if there's very many people out there in the audience that are from the Midwest, but you absolutely understand completely what I'm saying. And because of that, everybody in Detroit is handy. If your car broke, you fixed it. If your roof leaked, you fixed it. If your uncle needed his appendix out, you don't talk about that. Let me do this. This may help. Sorry, I should have gone on to the next slide. There we go. So this is kind of the chronology here. When I was a kid, I enjoyed, and you may remember this, I enjoyed building plastic models, balsa wood model airplanes. My parents realized that if they took the kit out of the box and threw away the instructions, it would stretch the family's model building budget and slow me down. I don't know if you've had similar experiences. Like every born engineer, I took things apart. And sometimes, and only sometimes, they worked when I was done. So moving now into the real world. In my teenage years, I got to bounce around in my father's appliance repair service truck. This was the 1970s version of Take Your Kid to Work days. Appliance repair led to HVAC repair. And this is how I learned how things work. I got to take them apart, and more often than not, they worked when I was done. When I was in high school, I spent the mornings taking a full class load. In the afternoons, I attended vocational school for HVAC repair. At some point, they wouldn't let me stay in high school anymore, and I was off to the University of Michigan. Michigan had a reputation at the time as a hands-on college for engineers. So I am, obviously with this background, a very hands-on type of engineer. I focused on energy, thermo, fluids, pipes, pumps, boilers, and chillers. Much of the same stuff I got to work on in the service truck, but this time with numbers. At college, I'm going to admit, my first calculator was not an HP. It was a Casio Scientific. First to admit, I couldn't afford an HP at the time. After college, my very first job, best job ever, was with HP at the HP Desktop Computer Division in Fort Collins, Colorado. My role at DCD was to bring mechanical engineering skills to improve the day-to-day operation of the building, effectively to help the maintenance team design and manage the HVAC, the plumbing, pure gas, industrial ventilation, those large building systems. Now, in years past, that used to be called an apprenticeship, and it's the greatest experience that any engineer can have coming out of college. While in Corvallis, I saw the development and the rollout of numerous products. The 8X, the 99, the 200, the 500. Now, there's a lot of funny stories about the 500 series, and I'm going to save those for the next speech, but if we have a chance to run into each other, please ask me about some 500 stories. Now, when I was in Fort Collins, I had the pleasure of dining with Bill and Dave. Of course, there were 300 other people there because it was a division review, but I did get to shake their hands. During that time, I got my engineering training certification and later my PE, my professional engineering registration, which I still hold. At some point, I transferred to Loveland, about 10 miles down the road from Fort Collins, and joined the Loveland Instrument Division. Yes, I was a member of HPT&M. A lot of people don't understand the significance of T&M, but I'm sure you do. Loveland's where I received and used my first HP calculator, 41C. Yay! Okay. At some point, though, I reached the decision that every HP engineer faces about remaining a technical contributor or seeking a management position. HP's inkjet business unit was exploding at that time. So I applied for and was named the facilities engineering manager with the inkjet business unit in Corvallis. Initially, I managed a team of about 6 facilities engineers, and eventually I became section manager with about 25 people. As a personal reward at that time, my 41 evolved into a 41C, then onto a 41CX, which you see behind me, or you don't see behind me anymore. And that's my day-to-day, my daily driver calculator. After I started to settle in as a manager, I made the decision to transition from engineering, and I returned to school for a business degree. Although living in Oregon at the time, I enrolled in Colorado State and focused on business relationships and alliances. On graduation, this was very common in HP to at the time to get a degree, and then HP would help you morph into a role where you could contribute utilizing your new degree. So on graduation, I was placed in a new team called the HP New Business Creation Team in Corvallis. And my role was a bit of an unconventional supply chain manager. I worked on a team of about 100 engineers, marketers, supply chain folks, and it was a skunk works. We were off in the corner, working by ourselves. We were given the mission of 3 new $1 billion a year businesses for HP within 3 years. The team created LightScribe, if you're familiar with that, HP business projectors, and the Halo video conferencing system, which, if you're familiar with Halo, was a tremendous technical capability about 10 years ahead of its time, maybe even a little bit longer. Part of new business creation, I got to work with some of the brightest and most prolific inventors that worked at HP. Most went on to become HP Distinguished Technologists, which is the second highest level of engineer at HP, or recognition, I guess I should say. And 2 went on to become HP Fellows. Through my interactions with them, I submitted numerous patent applications. I was awarded 5 US patents.
They relate to improvements in LightScribe's writing speed, and then one that was a little bit off the wall, using inkjet cartridges as fuel injectors in cars. It's got some great advantages. It has a few risks. Fundamentally, my role was selling ideas. Around 2000, a new was formed at HP Corporate to sell and license HP's intellectual property. This is very similar to what I was doing at Corvallis, but the cookie jar that team got to work with was every patent, every trademark, every trade secret, and every innovation that HP owned. I joined that team, and I focused on selling and licensing patents and trade secrets. My peers were very involved in brand licensing. I focused on patents. In the area of the patent sales and licensing, I worked on a wide range of technologies: wired Ethernet standards, high volume production printing, and reducing energy consumption in data centers. Okay, it all starts to come together at the end. Over time, HP's business activities in selling and licensing patents diminished. My focus moved to brand licensing projects. It's rare for a brand licensing manager to have a deep technical background, but it's a great benefit when you're dealing with technically sophisticated products like calculators. In 2022, I was asked to join a team to oversee the transition of HP's calculator business to a brand licensing model. In 2021, I was asked to head the team, and I continue to work with HP's two licensees going forward. All right, how does this all add up? What am I bringing to the HP calculator business? First and foremost, I have a strong technical and a strong business background. I'm massively old school. I earned my gray hair and shiny forehead at HP. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I can find, engage, and pull together the smartest people in the room, even if a few of them don't work for HP. I've been part of 3 startups outside of HP. Well, 1 inside HP. It's another story to tell when we get together, and 2 outside of HP. The teams that I run, our core values are respect, commitment, and appreciation, and we get things done. And I very much like to be on teams that win. And that's what brings me to the HP calculator business today. We're going to have time for questions and answers, and I'm more than happy to talk about the journey that I've been on, my view of the business, where we're going. I hope this helps you get a sense, a rock solid sense of who's the guy on the other side of the brand. And I hope that we can continue to talk, have a strong relationship, because I know I'm in the room with the smartest people. Okay. Shall we shift the discussion to brand licensing? I'll stop and say, is there a quick question? If not, I'll move right into brand licensing because it's kind of different and new.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to advance the slide again. All right. I'm not sure your familiarity with brand licensing. It's each company implements it a little bit differently. I'm going to talk to you about how our organization implements it. Brand licensing. Please go ahead.
Nope. Continue.
Okay. Brand licensing is not a change in product. It's a change in how product comes to market. So from HP's perspective, we are still very much in the calculator business, fighting the fight, part of the technology, but we've just changed our model for going forward. And at its heart, the brand license gives the organizations that we're working with the ability to oversee the business operations, to produce products, to deal and own with the ecosystem around the products under the supervision of HP. Where in the previous model, HP would perhaps be responsible for all of the relationships that you're seeing here. HP's primary relationship now is with our 2 licensees, and they manage the retailers and ultimately the relationship with the customer, again, with strong oversight from HP. Why would a company do this? There are a lot of reasons, actually. And a lot of them make really good sense when related to the calculator business. Initially, we look to brand licensing. This is not as applicable to calculators, perhaps, as the next bullet, but we look to brand licensing as a really fast way to get into a market and see if it's something that is going to work for us. Or it's that old earn while you learn model. So we might use brand licensing to introduce a product in a particular region very quickly, sort of harnessing the infrastructure that the licensee already has. The other point, and this is very, very specific to calculators, we need to adjust the cost model, that the sales volume and the prices and the investment are no longer in balance with sales, with profitability, and we need to find a different way that HP can work. Now, back to what I think are even more important core strengths. This allows us to utilize, I mentioned utilize the infrastructure. This allows us to utilize not just the infrastructure and the relationships that our partners have, but specific knowledge, experience. They may have contacts to other companies that would be useful for H. So it's a really, really good business alliance in brand licensing. And an area that may not come to mind right away is that brand licensing is used to protect the HP brand. And this goes in two directions. One is it makes sure that the HP brand stays out there, it stays visible, that HP products continue to be seen by customers, continue to evolve, and continue to represent great value and great technology. But there's an also element here that's kind of interesting and has to do with trademarks, if you're not aware. Trademarks are wonderful things, but if you don't use them, you can lose them. Now, it's hard to imagine that anybody out there would be able to produce a device called an HP12C. I mean, you can't imagine that kind of situation. But if HP weren't using the HP12C brand, it would open up the possibility that someone else may try to produce a product called the HP12C, which we do not want to have happen. So we use brand licensing to keep the products alive and put some energy into them and grow them and turn corners and ultimately succeed in the long run. All right, this is the meat and potatoes, guys. So we talk about brand licensing. What is HP responsible for? What's in the agreement? And what is the licensee responsible for? And I'm going to leave this up for just a moment so you can absorb it. And I apologize. I hope it's large enough to read. I don't know the size monitor you're seeing me on. Okay. So what are the key elements here? The key elements are HP's responsible. HP's totally responsible. It's our product. It's our brand. When customers see it, they see an HP product. So it's our job, and to be frank, it's my job to make sure that the products that are out there are rock solid HP products, that they absolutely fit what a customer expects to be getting when they pay for an HP branded product. Through that, I oversee the operations of our licensees. They oversee the operation of the ecosystem. We do that under what is, it's approximately an 80-page agreement contract that addresses all of these bullet points and many, many more. But we come to a very, very clear understanding of what does it mean to operate a business on HP's behalf? What are HP's expectations and vision for quality, for environmental regulation, for how we treat our workers, for how factories function, certifications, every aspect that you can think of that HP kept internal when we managed the business is now managed through and documented by a trademark license agreement. I want you to appreciate that this is not a casual throw it over the fence, do whatever you want with it, guys, and send us a check every quarter. It is absolutely not that. And then over on the right, we get into what are the licensees' responsibilities. And you can see that they are now basically delivering and managing many of the ecosystem functions that HP had when it was all done internally. Where else have we done this? Well, we use brand licensing largely, as I mentioned, two reasons. One, to keep the products, keep the brand very out there and visible. We like to put it in places where people are going to see it. And the other element that we do is we like to find applications for brand licensing that are adjacent to our core products. We never, ever use brand licensing to compete against products that HP wants to make internally. But we do use brand licensing to sort of fill in some of the gaps and fringes. This isn't the case with calculators, but it's a large part of what my team that I'm part of does. So these products, which you may or may not have bought, and you look at, were brand licensed. And I hope, if you purchase them, that made this product, or whether or not a licensee partner made it under a brand license. That's our goal. It's not just products. We actually brand license services. This is a very interesting organization, a license. I've used it personally. I had boxes and boxes of family 16mm movies that I wanted to digitize. Would have taken me months, and I don't have quality equipment to be able to do the transfer of 16mm to digital. There's a company out there that we work with under a brand license, and they deliver the service of converting films, tapes, pictures, and audio to digital media, sending it back to you. And they do that under the HP brand. From the customer's perspective, they are working with HP, and their products come back to them with HP brand on it. So it's not just products, it's also services that we do brand licensing. Starting to get to the end of the brand licensing presentation, I want to convey here too that there is another form of relationships that businesses have between each other, and I want you to be really clear that that is not what we are doing. And it has to do with franchising. So fundamentally in franchising, and you're seeing many of the popular franchise organizations over here to the right, the idea in franchising is the parent organization largely sets a standard, and it really is up to the individual franchisee to run the business. There's nowhere near the level of collaboration or oversight. It's a very much throw it over the fence model. And I'm characterizing it perhaps harshly. And if there was a person speaking next to me who was going to speak to you about franchising, they would probably describe it in a little less terms. But the concept of brand licensing versus franchising is very largely around the amount of interaction, the amount of collaboration that goes on in the relationship. So I really want to differentiate here. I am very involved. HP is extremely involved in our ongoing relationship with the licensees, far more so than you might think of if you stop at a McDonald's and think about, how does this business operate? I'll start to wrap it up. The key tenets of brand licensing, fundamentally, more than anything else, customers should never know the difference. There shouldn't be any part of their experience. And a quick aside, yes, legally, the calculators have to be labeled with the organization that manufactured them. And that's why if you flip over on the back of the calculator, you'll see mention of Morovia, you'll see mention of Royal. But aside from that legal requirement, from the customer's perspective, they should have no awareness that was anything other than a product that came from HP. And that product needs to perform to that level of expectation. And that carries me into sort of the way that I sum that up. Every brand licensed product, and this I'm speaking very personally, and I will tell you this is fundamental to me in terms of how I work with calculators and other licensing programs that I'm doing. Every brand licensed products needs to be worthy of carrying the HP brand name. Now, I'm old school, so when I say worthy of the HP name, that's in my heart. And that transcends just, speeds and feeds, right? That's old school. Okay, so that's old days, not necessarily old school. We won't brand license junk because it's not worthy of the HP brand name. And that's just, I guess, your takeaway is that's my fundamental commitment. We oversee, as I mentioned earlier, we oversee more or less all aspects of their doing business. We do all aspects of their doing business. However, we also maintain very, very high levels of accountability and communication around things having to do with HP's real true business priorities, which in addition to making great products, making good profit, have to do with environmental protection, human rights, social responsibility. I hope if you've been watching our CEO, you've seen that the company's taken very, very public, very strong stands about its place in the world community. Finally, the mission, brand licensing, enhance the product offering, protect our freedom to operate. That refers to what I was describing about people not necessarily coming in and using our name and making products that people might think are HP branded, but they're not. We want to raise the visibility and value of HP and its products. I'll give you a quick aside here on that. Some of my other projects that I'm working on are to reintroduce the HP brand to middle schoolers and early high schoolers. I think that HP has, I'll put it in the positive, a great opportunity to reacquaint STEM students, math students, all students with who and what is HP and what does it bring to the table and how can it help you succeed in your career and even in solving the problem that's right in front of you. I'm personally engaged in a big thrust to bring us back into education and early education. And finally, and this is as valid as any other, my department has the mission of creating new business opportunities for HP. Now, I'm going to tell you that my view of the calculator business is it's a new opportunity. It's a tough market. It's a tough technology. It's a technology finding its way. But I think in finding that way, it represents new opportunities for HP. And that's another part of what I bring to the table. So thank you. Appreciate that. I appreciate you sitting through any presentation that starts with a person describing what it was like when they were young. That's a big commitment on your part. But I hope it was helpful in getting an appreciation of where I come from and what I'm working on behalf of HP.
Thank you, Mitch. We got about 5 minutes left. People have some questions. And if people don't have questions, I always have questions. But you want, Richard, you go.
I have a question.
You can't see us, right?
No, actually I can. Unfortunately, you're about 1.25 inches square. Let me see if I can change that part of it, but let me see if I can see you a little bit better. Please go ahead with your question though.
Mitch, the video will cut off in about 5 minutes.
And I edited the HP Solve newsletter for the last half of its life. And
Great.
During that time, I had an opportunity to work through HP and their third-party contractors and that type of thing. And one of my challenges, other than content of the newsletter, was to actually produce a newsletter using the tools that was
Yes.
available and somewhat even restricted. We did adjust to that and did it very well. But the lesson learned was the complexity of these relationships. And I'll just use a website as an example that if we go looking at HP calculator related websites, I can imagine that there's lots and lots of issues in which there simply is no answers because the whole system, is so complicated and doesn't really function. So I guess my question is it the licensee's responsibility for managing and maintaining HP calculator websites?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you. And I'm going to answer it in two parts. The first is it's HP's. Hard stop, period. Now, as the future rolls out, we'll be receiving more information from the licensees. We'll be talking about what are the critical things to be saving and doing. However, the buck stops with HP. Now, what I'm kind of excited to bring up here, I'll do it very quickly. Excuse me, I need to find a note. Okay, is my understanding is that you have a session to discuss a recent conversation that occurred between Chuck and Bob with the HP archivists. And this might be really fascinating to you guys. So we've had a super positive discussion between your organization, your team, and the HP archivists, and the conversation will continue. So my understanding is that you're going to have some type of a breakout session to discuss what would you like the relationship with HP's professional archivists to be, and how can we improve it? So I'll just leave it there. I think it's a great breakthrough in reconnecting your community into the heart of the HP historical collection and the people who care about it.
Mitch, we have not done that session yet. We will. Most of the players involved are here.
Did I spoil the?
No, not at all. We had originally thought of doing a Friday night, but too busy.
I'm really looking forward to the answer. I think it was a great initial meeting. Please, are there other questions?
Anyone else? Jim? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jim Donnelly.
Hi, Jim.
My relationship with HV calculators began with my father buying the first HP 35, which I still have.
Mitch, put your face back up on the screen. Take down the presentation and put your face back up.
Thanks. That would be so much better.
Okay, that'd be cool. So one of the first questions that I would have for you is this part of HPE or HPQ?
Oh, great question. We use HPQ to mean the pre-separation entity. So it is part of HPI, the official name of the printer, computer, and 3D print business is HP Inc.
Oh, okay, all right. So what happens when an idea for a new generation calculator emerges?
If you got it, I want to hear it. I mean, boy, tee it up.
Is it the licensee or is it HP that would be the driver of innovative processes?
Thank you for sort of level setting me. Functionally, it's the licensee. They're really in the pilot seat in determining what.
Sorry, Mitch, we got cut off by the 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, no, I fully understand that. I hope I gave a sufficient answer there. The licensee really has the frontline responsibility for what the next product might be. So they need to hear your ideas, give it some thought in terms of what the implementation might be, how does it fit into the product line, but it is absolutely a conversation that I am part of. And as you heard in my voice, I'm really interested in hearing your idea. So let's get this one done.
Someone else had a question?
I had kind of a similar question. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, there were a number of calculators coming out. And now if we look 10 years back, it's not that many. So what is there anything we can expect in the next 5-10 years? Do we know, or do you know?
Great question, and I'll tell you what directions to look at. I probably won't describe to you specific products. The fundamental challenge that we face is that much of the reason why a person used to carry a calculator has been supplanted by a cell phone. And I'm still fighting that battle, but that is a really big battle for us. So when new products come out, they need to more or less start with how is what's being thought about, how purpose-built numerical machine. That's one direction to go. So that takes us into areas of asking, where are places where people are uncomfortable carrying their cell phones? And as we've already seen, some organizations, for example, have looked at the construction trades and seen situations where people would prefer not to take their $1,000 Apple 15 phone, and it isn't really purpose-built for the work that they do, so they're looking at products that are more customized towards their specific role, their specific needs. Now, that's just an example. So one vector to go down is to begin thinking about where are people in need of calculator horsepower at a place that they are either unwilling or unable to take their cell phones. So it's a branch that we're looking at. The other branch is our calculators are islands. Connectivity I'm sorry, in the interest of time, I'll just say connectivity. The other area that we have to go to is more open programming environments. There is a lot of push, particularly in Europe, that calculators at a certain level have to have Python functionality, and we're looking at that. Now, I'm not announcing new products here at this moment, but I am sharing with you some of the business dynamics that are going to define what those products are. I hope that was enough for your question. I will say one thing though, looking backwards, our product line is old. Frankly, it's old. And it's based on old technology that we have continued to use well past its prime. And we're working very, very hard to change that very, very fast. Thank you.
Mitch, we're out of time. We're going to move on to hear talk with Royal, but want to thank you for your time and your candor. And we will be having you hopefully, possibly even attend at a future event, but we'll keep the dialogue going insofar as the archive and other movements.
I would think of the way that we've approached the archive question and building that connection is the perfect model for how we can collaborate in the future.
Excellent.
Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful time in Florida.